Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to All Praise Picks. Today we're looking at the MLB. It's Sunday Night Baseball. We have the New York Mets playing against the Chicago Cubs in Chicago on June 23rd, 2024. Currently, the Mets are 36 and 39, which is fourth in the NL East, and the Cubs are 37 and 40, which is third in the NL Central. So both the teams are playing each other pretty close in terms of their record, and both teams got one win each in this series, and this is the last game of the series uh, on Sunday Night Baseball, as I mentioned, in Wrigley Field. So it's should be a great game. In all honesty, I'm leaning towards the Mets in this one. I think that they have a much better pitching matchup, as well as just better bats overall when looking at their numbers when playing on the road versus at home. So I got four plays for you guys, all on BetMGM. As always, I'll give you my thoughts, break down the lines, and hopefully if you tap in, we can all win. So these are the first two parlays. I've grouped them in terms of really the pitching matchup. And in these two parlays, I'm leaning towards the Mets starting pitcher, Luis Severino, to have fewer hits than the Cubs starting pitcher, Javier Assad. So in the first parlay on the left, at plus 150, I have Severino to give up fewer hits and the Cubs to score under 10 runs in this game. And I think these are actually pretty doable. Severino for the season, he's 4-2 in his starts with a 3.52 ERA and a 3.65 expected ERA, and his whip's at 1.2. So his one thing is that his ERAs are pretty close in terms of his actual ERA and his expected ERA. And when looking at his matchups versus the Cubs, he's actually had a 1.29 ERA, so significantly lower, and 24 strikeouts in 3 plate appearances versus the Cubs. So he has been a very good pitcher against the Cubs, and when looking deeper into these 3 matchups that he's had versus them, one with the Mets and then 2 with the New York Yankees, he's given up 4 hits, 7 hits, and 1 hit respectively in those 3 games. And Assad, on the other hand, has allowed over 5 hits in 5 straight games, and he's also exceeded 1.5 walks allowed in 5 out of the last 6 games that he's played. So I think that in terms of Severino, I think that he'll give up fewer hits just because he's been playing as a better pitcher overall. When comparing their ERA numbers as well, Javier Assad has a 2.75 ERA, but his expected ERA is at 4.08, and there's a large discrepancy between those two. So I just think that he's due for some negative regression in this game, and I think that the Mets will be able to get hits on him. On the season, also, the New York Mets have the highest batting average on the road at 0.278, and should play better in this game after an 8-1 loss to the Cubs. The Mets in that 8-1 loss started Taylor McGill, who is statistically worse than Severino, and I think that they were saving Severino as a closeout pitcher for this series. Hopefully, they'll be able to get this win and win the series. And I think that in order to do so, they want to start Severino last. So I think that he'll be able to get fewer hits than Assad in this game, and in turn hold the Cubs to under 10 runs scored total in the game. The Cubs as a whole, just honestly, they play better against left-handed pitchers, and Severino is a right-handed pitcher, so I don't really see them scoring over 10 runs. And I think that with them scoring 8 runs in their last game, they're due for some negative regression in that category as well. So at plus 150, that's the first parlay. And then on the second parlay, I just have the total game to go under 15 runs. While I do lean towards the Mets in this game to win, I don't really think that either team will score that many runs. I could see this as like a 5-4 game, or even like a 4-3 game, just a low scoring game overall. One, because the Cubs don't really hit well against right-handed pitchers, and 2, I think that the Mets will just play a more defensive game as they prepare for their next series after leaving Chicago. So that's the second parlay at plus 175. And if you put 1 units on both of these parlays, you'll get either 150% or 175% return on your investment. And that's obviously great. And I just advise you guys to have financial consciousness when making your decisions, and just an overall understanding of your bankroll when deciding to place a bet on either of these parlays. And these are the next 2 parlays, just giving my thoughts more so on the game as a whole, but also including Severino strikeouts. So on the left at plus 145, I have the Mets to score over 2 runs in this game, for Severino to have the most strikeouts comparatively to Assad, and for the Mets to cover the first 5 innings by 1.5 runs, essentially not to lose the first 5 innings by 2 runs, and to cover the game by 2.5 runs, essentially not to lose the game by 3 runs. When looking at Severino's strikeouts, in his 3 starts versus the Cubs, he's had 9, 10, and 5 strikeouts. And he's pitched at least 6 innings in each of those games. So I just think that statistically, if he's pitching over 6 innings and already has essentially an average of over 8 strikeouts in his 3 starts, I think that he'll be able to get more strikeouts than Assad in this game. As I mentioned before, Assad has allowed over 5 hits in 5 straight games and has exceeded 1.5 walks allowed in 5 of his last 6 games. So I think that the Mets should be able to get to him in this game, and in turn of instead of just not being able to hit the ball, but just not striking out as well, whether that be through walks or foul balls. So I think Severino should be able to get more strikeouts than Assad in this game. And I also just think that the Mets will be able to score more than 2 runs. In the last game, they only scored one run, and I just think that their bats will be more awake, especially with this being a Sunday night baseball game. And I mentioned before that I think that the Mets will win this game. So I took the last 2 lines of the parlay on the left. That's just a safeguard against home runs being scored or just any outside errors by the Mets. So at plus 145, that's their first parlay. And then the second parlay is at plus 240. And it really is just leaning upon Severino to have more than 6 strikeouts. The Cubs as a whole are just not good against right-handed batters. And I think that if Severino's in his groove, he should be able to get 6 strikeouts in this game. As I mentioned, in his 3 games versus the Cubs, he's gone over 6 strikeouts 2 times with 9 and 10 strikeouts. And in the one time that he went under, he actually had 5 strikeouts. So I think that as long as he plays in his usual 6 innings or 6.2 innings, that he should be able to get 6 strikeouts in this game. And then I also took the Mets to cover a plus 1.5 run line spread in the first 5 in the full game. And I think that is a pretty safe bet for them as long as they come to play offensively and don't give up too much defensively. So at plus 145, if you bet 1 unit, you have a 145% return on your investment. And at plus 240, if you bet 1 unit, you have a 240% return on your investment. Obviously, the parlay on the right is a riskier parlay because of the odds, and I really do think that Severino should have a good game in this one. But as always, I would just advise you guys to have bankroll consciousness and just an overall financial understanding of how much you're putting into each of these parlays when making your decision if you do decide to bet. But until next time, guys, stay tuned for more MLB and WNBA videos coming out this week, and appreciate you guys for watching. Peace.